Okay, let's dive into one of the most consequential public inquiries in modern British history. We're going to break down the story of how a system that was designed to protect children, well, it failed on pretty much every single level, and the massive overhaul it took to rebuild it from the ground up.
This one sentence from Sir Michael Bichard himself, it really just says it all. It perfectly sets the stage for a story that isn't just about what went wrong, but about who was responsible, and, crucially, how to stop a catastrophe like this from ever happening again.
And look, this wasn't about just one mistake or one person making a bad call. The Bichard Inquiry uncovered something way more frightening, an entire system that was broken from top to bottom. It triggered an investigation that would completely change the way child protection works.
So, what was the spark that lit this fire? Well, it all kicks off with the case of Ian Huntley. When the world found out that he'd been hired as a school caretaker, despite having a long and pretty disturbing history of contact with the police, the big question wasn't just how, it was why. Now, what's so staggering about this slide is just the pattern. This wasn't one single red flag that got missed. It was a whole series of flashing warning lights, year after year after year. The inquiry discovered that the system was simply incapable of connecting these incredibly dangerous dots. And here's the key takeaway. The inquiry very quickly realized this wasn't about the actions of one bad individual. This was about deep, systemic flaws that allowed him to operate completely under the radar. It wasn't about a bad apple. The entire barrel was rotten.
So how on earth did this even happen? Well, to get that, you have to understand the complete and utter information chaos that the report brought to light.
The report used this amazing phrase, islands of information, and that's exactly what it was. It painted this picture of police forces, each one on its own little island with its own local databases that couldn't talk to anyone else's. Information was stuck in silos, it was unreliable, and sometimes it was just deleted. There was no way to get a single clear picture of the threat Huntley posed because nobody could see all the pieces at the same time. And this slide, wow, it really breaks down the problem on the ground. In just one police force, Humberside, get this, their intelligence system just automatically deleted records. The crime reporting system buried critical details in places that couldn't even be searched. And the child protection database, the staff themselves called it largely worthless and didn't even bother using it for checks. So the data was either gone, hidden, or just flat out ignored. Now, you might think, and a lot of people did, that this was all because of data protection laws being too strict. But Bichard shot that down completely. He was clear the law itself wasn't the problem. The real issue was a climate of fear, a total lack of training and guidance that made officers terrified of sharing information, even when it was vital. Okay, so to see how all these huge systemic problems actually played out in a real-life situation, we just have to look at the police vetting check for Ian Huntley's job as a school caretaker. It is a perfect and tragic case study in how a broken process leads to an absolutely catastrophic outcome. So here's how it's supposed to work. In theory, it's pretty logical, right? It's designed to cast a really wide net, checking local records, national records, and this is the important part, records from every single police force where a person has lived. The whole point is to build a complete picture. But in Huntley's case, well, it was a total train wreck. It all started with a simple data entry mistake, where his name was basically put in backwards. That led to a useless national search. But the fatal error, the final domino to fall, was that no one ever contacted Humberside Police, the one place where all that disturbing intelligence was stored. The single most crucial step was just skipped. And the result of that? It's just devastating to think about. A system that should have seen a giant flashing neon sign of dangerous behavior instead saw nothing. A complete blank slate. A man with a file packed with red flags was clear to work with children. But here's the thing about this report. It didn't just point out all the problems. It laid out a detailed, radical blueprint for how to fix them. This was a call to tear down the broken structures and build something that could actually protect people. And the recommendations were huge. I mean, a complete overhaul. They demanded clear rules to fix the chaos of police record keeping. They called for a single national intelligence system to finally break down those islands of information. And they pushed for much, much tougher vetting for anyone who wanted to work with children. Right at the heart of this was something called the enhanced disclosure. And this was a game changer. It wasn't just about what you'd been convicted of, it was about seeing the whole picture, including police intelligence on cases that were dropped or where someone was found not guilty. The report said this had to be the bare minimum standard. Now, this was not one of those reports that just sits on a shelf collecting dust. Oh no, its impact was immediate, it was profound, and you can still see its effects everywhere today. This slide really gets to the core of its legacy. Entirely new organizations were created. You've probably heard of the DBS, the Disclosure and Barring Service. Well, that came directly from this report. Its whole job is to be a central professional firewall, checking people to prevent the wrong ones from getting jobs with kids or vulnerable adults. And maybe the biggest legacy of all, those islands of information we talked about, the report smashed them down. It started a new era where sharing intelligence between police, schools, and social services isn't just a good idea, it's a legal duty. The whole mindset shifted from why should we share to why on earth aren't we sharing? You know, the Bichard Report gave us some powerful answers, and its reforms have, without a doubt, saved lives. But it also leaves us with this question, one that never really goes away. It's a stark, constant reminder that even the best designed systems are only as good as the people running them, and that keeping people safe requires constant, unending vigilance.